When the earthquake struck, I suffered a crushed spine while attempting to rescue my sister. In the aftermath, she deceived me out of my medical funds, purchased a house for herself, and stylishly married my first love. Meanwhile, due to a lack of money, I was unable to receive the necessary treatment and became paralyzed permanently. Suddenly, I awoke to find myself back at the exact moment when the earthquake had first occurred. This time around, I chose to disregard my sister's pleas for assistance and fled the scene alone. My first love insisted, "Your sister is still trapped inside. Save her or you'll be selfish." In response, I pushed him towards the collapsing structure. "Sure, you're the selfless one. Go ahead and be a hero," I retorted. I was jolted awake by the flickering lights, realizing that I had been given a second chance. The surroundings mirrored my previous life perfectly. My parents were away, leaving only my sister and me at home. Out of nowhere, the earthquake hit. Instinctively, I headed for the door, residing on the 3rd floor, which offered a decent escape route. However, in my past life, I turned back to save my sister. I managed to pull her out, exerting all my strength to ensure her safety. Just as we approached the building's exit, an aftershock occurred. My sister pushed me aside and ran ahead. I stumbled and fell, then tried to get up to escape, but the door gave way. Large rocks and the door frame crashed onto my back, isolating us from the disaster zone. Fortunately, firefighters arrived in time to rescue me. I survived, but with a severely broken spine that required major surgery. I had believed that surviving a disaster would bring fortune, but instead, I was met with a deceitful boyfriend and a sister who seized all my assets. Even my parents, who returned from out of town, dismissed my situation, saying, "Forget it. We don't have that kind of money." I tried to stand up for myself, but my savings of $50,000 were deemed necessary for my sister's wedding by my parents. "You're already in this condition. Do you want us to lose everything?" Consequently, my sister, whom I had saved, married my boyfriend using the money meant to save my life, leaving me paralyzed due to the inability to afford treatment. Reliving the experience, I didn't hesitate to exit the house. There was no point in discussing family ties with those who exploited me. My boyfriend lived in the adjacent unit. Once I was safely outside, I noticed him nervously searching around. He seemed to relax upon seeing me, but became frantic when my sister wasn't behind me. "Where's Sarah?" It became clear that Michael and Sarah had been involved behind my back in my previous life, something I hadn't realized before. I looked puzzled. "What?" Michael became agitated, yelling at me and ignoring the fact that I had just escaped a near-death situation. "Your sister, Sarah, Emily, are you even a proper sister? You ran out alone during the earthquake, abandoning your own sister. They say disasters reveal true human nature." Nearby, a couple was arguing over divorce. Her husband fled as soon as the quake began, and the wife declared, "Marrying you was the worst fate. I want a divorce. Truly selfish." The crowd turned their judgmental gazes towards me. Aren't they supposed to be twins? Nowadays, you can't rely on husbands or even big sisters. So selfish. My 3-year-old child was the only one who showed genuine care. Hearing all the accusatory voices sent a chill down my spine. In my previous life, when I became paralyzed while saving someone and faced betrayal from everyone, no one supported me. Living this life again, I realized I needed to sever ties with my heartless family who fed off me. However, I refused to let these ignorant people brand me as selfish. "Emily, hurry and save your sister. You're selfish if you don't." I grabbed Michael's arm and shoved him towards the crumbling building. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have known Sarah was home. After all, she usually goes out drinking at night. Michael, as a man, you're fast. Can you save my sister? Please, I'm begging you." Yeah, you're the make-believe hero. Go ahead." Michael was reluctant to enter, but, influenced by the approving stares of others, he charged in. Almost immediately, the building collapsed. Hearing the gasps, I subtly smirked. If he's so fond of my sister, he can join her inside. After the aftershock subsided, firefighters and search dogs arrived swiftly. Michael and Sarah were found near the entrance, and it took less than half an hour to rescue them. However, Sarah's face was scratched in several places, and both her legs were broken at the knees. Michael's injuries mirrored those from my past life. I pinched myself and cried out, Sarah, Michael. I followed the ambulance to the hospital and called my parents. What? Sarah's the one injured? I responded mildly. In my previous life, my parents were indifferent to my injuries, treating me as if I weren't even their child. And you? I'm not too bad, I said. Mom lost it. Why are you fine while Sarah is severely hurt? Emily, did you do this on purpose? You've never been a good kid. I shouldn't have left Sarah alone with you, she raged on. The tight knot in my heart snapped. They say no parent doesn't love their child, but here I was. I interrupted, irritated. Sarah needs surgery money. Send over $100,000. Where's your money? You're supposed to be her sister. I hung up without hesitation. In my previous life, it wasn't enough that I used my hard-earned money to help my sister, who then went on to steal my husband. About 15 minutes later, the money was transferred to my account. Seeing the message for the $200,000 deposit brought tears to my eyes. In my past life, when I desperately needed money for surgery, my parents insisted they had none. Now, without even knowing the extent of their youngest daughter's injuries, they hurried to send over $200,000. It was clear who they truly cared about. Wiping my tears, I quickly purchased a high-speed train ticket to the neighboring city. In my previous life, I had managed to save $500,000 by running a small business because they knew I had money and would likely come back for more. This time, even if I had to give it all away, I wouldn't let them have a single dollar. After safely transferring the money to another account, I hurried back. By then, Sarah's surgery had also been completed. Doctor, how's my sister? There's not much to worry about, the doctor replied, adjusting his glasses. I bit my tongue to suppress a smile. The patient's right foot was crushed by a stone. It's irreparable. We did all we could with her right foot. I couldn't wait and rushed to the ward to see her. Seeing Emily's right leg ending in a stump made me smile. Who says the heavens aren't watching? Karma has arrived, hasn't it? With much pleading, Michael and Sarah were placed in the same hospital room, one without a right foot, the other needing extensive surgery for a broken spine. They truly suited each other. Additionally, I had seen Michael's mom once in my previous life. She was quite domineering. Her son was injured, and there was no way she wouldn't come. The hospital room was bound to become lively. That afternoon, my parents hurried back. Sarah was still under anesthesia and hadn't woken up. Oh, my precious daughter, how could you suffer so much? Emily, what kind of sister are you? Since childhood, how have I taught you? You should rather be hurt yourself than let anything happen to your sister. I chuckled. That's exactly what I did in my past life. And what did I receive in return? They exploited me, leaving me to die helplessly. Watching them scold me so vigorously, I pulled off Sarah's blanket. My mom froze for a moment, then gasped. Sarah, what happened to your foot? Seeing her tremble made me feel even colder inside. She never truly lacked the ability to love. She just didn't love me. Her right foot was crushed and couldn't be saved. As the words fell, my mom swung her hand at me. But too bad. I stepped back, and she missed. How dare you dodge? My dad frowned, rolling up his sleeves, ready to join the fight. I had witnessed this scene too many times. Out of 365 days, I had been beaten about 300. Sometimes Sarah made mistakes, and I got beaten too, as an example. But now, I refused to passively endure it. I glanced at the nurse's station outside and motioned her over. When the nurse entered, I nodded towards my parents. Go ahead, I challenged. Right now, try hitting me. With a nurse prepared to patch me up, the nurse frowned, giving my parents a different look. What do you think you're doing? She asked. Stop it! I won't listen to their nonsense. They muttered, lowering their hands in embarrassment. The nurse shot them a glare. With all this energy, take care of your daughter instead of causing more trouble. My parents needed these doctors and nurses to keep their daughter alive, so they dared not argue further. After the nurse left, my parents quietly threatened me. What are you standing there for? Give back the money we transferred to you just now. Oh? I sent them back $50,000. That's it. What are you standing there for? Give back the money we transferred to you just now. Oh? I sent them back $50,000. That's it. We gave you $200,000 and you only sent back $50,000? I shrugged, feigning innocence. Isn't all this for your daughter's life? Hospitals sure do drain money fast. I had kept $80,000 for myself. They threatened to check the bank statement, but before they could, another dramatic cry echoed from the doorway. "Michael, my poor boy." I smiled. His mom arrived just in time. Now, instead of checking bank statements, dealing with her would already drain my parents. Michael lay there, bandaged all over. His mom rushed in crying, struggling to place his hands. What happened to my son, and why is he in such bad shape? "Emily, tell me, how did this happen?" Unaware of the situation, my parents watched the commotion nonchalantly. I sighed softly and began to speak. "Michael is my sister's savior. He had already escaped but went back to save Sarah when he saw she was still inside. Unfortunately, there was an aftershock." My parents, who were amused just moments ago, suddenly stopped smiling. Michael's mom froze, then slapped her thighs, wailing, "Oh my God, my fine son ended up like this saving your daughter. Where's the doctor? Someone tell me what's wrong with Michael right now." My parents wanted to scold me but were too preoccupied. The commotion on Michael's side attracted a journalist. When I saw the camera, my blood boiled with excitement. Yes, let it blow up. Let the world see what happened here. I wanted to see how far my dear parents would go for their precious daughter. Michael's mom was already being interviewed over there. While everyone was distracted, I sneaked out to bring back the doctor. Michael's mom hadn't yet grasped her son's true condition. By the time I returned, a crowd had gathered around the hospital room. "What's everyone doing out here? The patient needs rest." With the doctor's order, most people began to disperse. Michael's mom, who was tearfully recounting her son's heroic deeds, paused when she saw the doctor. It was as if she found a lifeline. "Doctor, how's my son doing? Why is he wrapped in so many bandages? You have to do everything you can to save him. He's a hero." Meanwhile, my parents stood nearby looking like ostriches burying their heads in the sand. After all, her daughter was the one he saved. The doctor frowned slightly. "Michael, right? His spine was crushed by a rock. He urgently needs surgery. The surgery costs and recovery expenses are significant. You need to gather money quickly?" Michael's mom hesitated, her lips trembling. "We're just a regular rural family. Where would we get that kind of money?" Hearing this, my parents quickly pulled me aside, silently warning me not to say anything. But after a moment of silence, the doctor said, "Didn't he get hurt saving someone? Maybe try contacting the family of the person he saved." Michael's mom immediately turned to look at us. I felt my parents stiffen. The room was noisy, and the doctor no longer allowed media interviews. After everyone left, the room fell into an unsettling silence. Michael's mom glared at us as if she wanted to devour our entire family, but my parents kept their heads down, acting ignorant. After 2 minutes of this, Michael's mom stepped over, eyeing my sister. "The doctor said your daughter isn't hurt too badly, right? Just lost a foot." She laughed bitterly. "If my son hadn't risked his life, who knows if your daughter would even be alive?" My mom tried to speak, but was cut off. "You heard what the doctor said, right? My son saved your daughter's life. You owe it to help with the medical fees. Start by transferring $50,000 to my account." My parents initially seemed guilty, but the moment they heard $50,000, they refused. "Is your son's life that valuable to demand $50,000? That's outrageous," my dad argued. When my daughter saw this, it was already too late. "Your son barely stepped in before the building collapsed. He didn't save her, he blocked the path. If he hadn't suddenly run in, who knows? My daughter might have been fine." I wasn't surprised by my parents' absurd logic. They treated me the same way in my previous life. When I lay sick in bed, my mom fed Sarah chicken soup brewed for hours, while I only received porridge and pickled vegetables. She would complain to the doctor about the difficulties, claiming I was causing them trouble, and refuse the soup. Later, as I lay dying, my spirit hovered above, watching her try to force my eyes closed. "You chose this, being restless. Who's that for? You're cursed from the start. My Sarah was always lucky. She would have escaped without you." She even slapped my cheeks in anger. I couldn't speak then, but Michael's mom sure had a way with words. "What are you babbling about? Plenty of people saw my son rushing to save your daughter. With a mom like you, no wonder your daughter behaves this way." Michael's mom declared, "I'm gonna stay here until you get that money sorted out. My son's my life, and if I can't find peace, neither will you. At first, my parents scoffed at her, mocking her as an uneducated, loud, rural woman. What could a small-town lady do here? But eventually, they panicked. Unable to gather the money, Michael's mom began making their lives difficult. She interrupted Sarah's medication intake and tried to disrupt her in every way. She was relentless. After 2 days, my parents were exhausted, while I pretended to worry but secretly enjoyed the chaos. They had to take turns guarding, afraid she would sneak in. After 2 days, they were visibly worn out. Then, Sarah fully regained consciousness. My parents, scared of upsetting her, hesitated to tell her she lost a foot. But Michael's mom laid it all out. "You've been through a lot. When I'm better, I'll take care of Michael, even if my sister is his girlfriend. She was spoiled from childhood." "Don't mind her," Sarah stated politely, already unhappy with my recent behavior. Michael's mom rolled her eyes at me. "My son's unlucky to have a girlfriend like you," I intervened. "Then break up." "Not a chance." Sarah stayed awake longer. Michael's situation couldn't be hidden. 2 days later, Michael woke up, realizing he might be paralyzed. He snapped, "You need to get me money for treatment now." "Mom, I'm your only son. I'm only 25. I can't be bedridden forever." Listening, I smirked. It's true, nobody can truly understand how someone else feels. When my own accident happened, I was just 24, and I too had no choice but to wait for death. As soon as Michael said this, his mom jabbed at my mom's face. "Did you hear that? Hurry up and give me the money for my son's surgery. He's our only child. No matter how cruel you are, you can't let our family die out, can you?" Sarah looked around, completely confused. My mom, hands on her hips, fired back. "No money, just one life. Live or die, what's it got to do with us? And let's be real, if it weren't for your son, my daughter wouldn't have lost her foot." My dad nudged my mom hard, but it was too late. Sarah struggled to sit up. "Mom, what do you mean? What happened to my foot?" "Oh no, sweetie, I was just messing around," Michael's mom chuckled. "Karma." Sarah hesitantly pulled back the covers. Her ankle was bandaged, and there was nothing below. "Mom, where's my foot? What happened?" Sarah cried, breaking Michael's heart. All he could do was stand there, anxious. "I can't go on, Mom. Sis, why didn't you take me with you when you left? One call, and none of this would have happened." Everyone turned to look at me, eyes full of anger and disgust. Both families seemed to wish I was dead to pay for this mess. But no, I'm going to live well and throw gasoline on this fire. I feigned a look of helplessness. "Sarah, you often go out drinking and only come back the next day. How was I supposed to know if you were home? I called you several times before leaving. You didn't respond, so I left on my own." As soon as I said that, Michael's face changed. Sarah gave Michael a side eye and then became furious. "Who are you saying goes out drinking? Mom, you know I never stay out all night, right?" Unfortunately, my mom missed Sarah's hint. "It's all your sister's fault. How did she not notice you came home that night?" Playing the victim, I ran out with teary eyes and found a quiet place to make a call. "Is this reporter Daniel? I have a recording for you." I used work as an excuse and spent 2 stress-free days at a hotel. The hospital was probably still in chaos. 2 days later, I arrived early. Coincidentally, Michael was pulled out for some tests, and I overheard Sarah and our parents talking. "Mom, are you really not going to give Michael the money?" But Michael saved me. My parents were firm. "No, silly girl. Do you know how much his mom is asking for? We need to save our money for your dowry. What will you do if we give it away? A woman's dowry is her strength after marriage." Hearing it was for her own interest, Sarah immediately went silent. Just as I was about to walk in, she glanced at our parents. "Mom, Dad, doesn't my sister make a lot of money from her business?" The 3 of them exchanged a look and smiled together. "My money doesn't count as money. Mine's just to plug their holes and drain away." I lowered my eyes, let out a cold laugh, and walked in without changing my expression. They looked guilty. My mom clicked her tongue in annoyance. "Don't you know to knock before you come in?" My dad frowned and nudged her, then shockingly handed me an apple. Guess it was the first time ever. Growing up, anything Sarah ate was neatly plated. As for me, I had to settle for the dried-up leftovers or the rotten ones. I ignored the apple and sat down looking troubled. For some reason, my mom never liked me. Even needing my help didn't stop her from scolding. Your sister's not well and you're sulking. What's wrong? You pull that face every day. Someone might think we're mistreating you. Sarah gave her a look and tried to get chummy with me. Sis, what's wrong? You left for 2 days while I was in the hospital. Something's up, don't be mad at Mom. She's just exhausted these days. See, my dear sister always manages to throw the blame on me in a few words. This time, I played along, sighing again. What's the matter? Just spill it. Maybe our family earthquake is because you keep sighing. What little... I cut off my mom, trying to look teary-eyed. My business is in trouble. What? All 3 of them looked at me, wide-eyed and in sync. If I hadn't overheard their conversation earlier, I might have thought they were genuinely concerned. What did you do? My mom shoved me on the shoulder. We told you to work that job. Instead, you had to mess around with your ventures. Now look, the family can't count on you for anything. If you're out of money, get out of here. We're not housing freeloaders. Finally, the words I had been waiting for. I put on a heartbroken look. Mom, you wouldn't disown your daughter just because I have no money, right? Get lost. My mom continued to curse me, ignoring Dad and Sarah's attempts to calm her. Why come back if you're broke? Get away from us. I turned and left without looking back. Surprisingly, I felt no sadness, only relief. It had been a week since Michael's accident. His mom must be losing patience. The next day, the internet was flooded with a recording, the very one I had sent to the reporter. My mom's unreasonable words went viral. No money, just one life, live or die. What's it got to do with us? And let's be real. If it weren't for your son, my daughter wouldn't have lost her foot. Scrolling through the comments, wearing a face mask, I found myself laughing so hard that I nearly cried. Some people were ruthless. Why doesn't this old lady just go away? If everyone were like you, there wouldn't be any decent people left. Another added, good people die young, but the wicked live forever. Why don't you just go and take your son's place? I was shocked by the level of cruelty. My mom was a retired elementary school teacher, and despite her age, she still browsed the web. I feared she might come across these harsh remarks. That afternoon, numerous videos started appearing online. Some compassionate individuals visited the hospital. From the videos, it seemed like phones were practically shoved into my parents' and Sarah's faces. Did you really say love it or leave it? Your daughter's life is precious, but others' lives aren't. You're a teacher for the future generation. Is that a joke, Sarah? Do you agree with your mom? The hero on the bed there got hurt saving you after all. Sarah's face turned red in the video and she couldn't respond. Meanwhile, Michael's mom was crying and publicly condemning my family for their terrible actions. This situation was too overwhelming for my parents to manage. The next day, I went undercover to the hospital to witness the spectacle. I was shocked upon reaching the entrance. A well-meaning netizen had placed 3 funeral wreaths there, bearing my parents' and Sarah's names. I quietly pulled down my hat and hurried inside. As soon as I entered the hallway, I heard a commotion. Shockingly, even Sarah and Michael were arguing. If you guys don't pay for the surgery, don't expect any more treatment, Michael's mom shouted. She then smashed the 4 drugs Sarah needed and was even live streaming it. My mom became furious and started grappling with her. Because of you, I lost my job. I was 5 years away from retirement. It's all your fault, and now you want to bully my daughter. I'm taking you down with me. They began pulling each other's hair. My mom, who once prided herself on being cultured, had turned into a brawler. My dad tried to intervene, but ended up joining the fight. Sarah and Michael stayed in bed, yelling at each other. If I'd known your family was like this, I wouldn't have saved you, Michael said. You aren't even as good as my sister's thumb, Sarah replied. She had more energy and was throwing apples in frustration. The fight escalated, dragging even the hospital staff into it. I quietly dialed 911. Hi, officer, there's a fight going on at the hospital. They're attacking the staff. The chaos was so severe that neither family could manage it alone, necessitating police involvement. If they couldn't reach an agreement, legal action might be the only solution. With so many people watching, the police promised to share the final outcome. I remembered from my past life that surgery cost about 600,000 yuan. My parents might have enough saved up. After considering it, I sneaked back home. Michael's mom had figured out how to play the victim online and started raising money through streaming. Michael couldn't wait any longer. Before bed that night, Michael called me. His voice was shaky. "Emily, you haven't visited me in forever. Do you think I'm useless now and plan to leave me? I miss you. This mess between our families isn't about you." I almost believed him if it weren't for his mom slandering me in her live stream. People online were speculating about my motives. Girls, they're all the same, remember that. Her family was entangled in this mess, but she was nowhere to be found. Wake up, influencer. Surgery is key. You can't keep stalling for money. I laughed softly. They thought they could squeeze money out of me by staying together. If we broke up, they'd trash me publicly. I replied calmly. You're saying I don't want you. Michael, why did you go against the flow to help my sister during the earthquake? I didn't even know she was home. I was already outside, but you ran in. You two are that close. As the comments on the live stream shifted, I chuckled again. You won't use clueless people against me. Michael tried contacting me several more times, but I refused. I bet they are out of options now. When negotiations with the police stalled, both families had to go to court. But Michael couldn't wait. He knew I had some money. Later, he even started a crowdfunding campaign. Sarah couldn't handle the pressure and was discharged. I heard their house was vandalized with red paint. 2 days later, I received a call from Sarah. You're not coming home, even though there's so much going on. Is your heart made of stone? Mom's in the hospital. I went the next day. What happened? Sarah was back to herself, even pointing a finger at me to smear my name. You have the nerve to ask. It's all because of your boyfriend. He demanded $700,000 in damages. We're being hounded by crazed netizens. Mom saw our house covered in red paint and had a heart attack. Oh, she got scared. Are we talking about Michael, my boyfriend, now? Sarah blushed. You don't know what you're talking about. I rolled my eyes, but just then a vase shattered at my feet. Telling Emily to drop dead. It seemed my mom still had some strength. Now I could hang up the phone without worry. A week later, Michael's mom went live, announcing she received $600,000 in compensation. Michael's mom went live, stating she received $600,000 in compensation. It seemed my mom and the others had actually gritted their teeth and paid up. People online were congratulating her. But it's been so long. Is Michael still able to get surgery? After finishing my own matters, I sent a file to the Education Bureau. It was evidence I had gathered recently, showing my mom's private tutoring activities over the past decade. Once this was made public, it caused quite a stir online. Such a person doesn't deserve to be a teacher. Let's vote her out of here ASAP. Everyone seemed eager to pile on, and many parents whose kids took her tutoring classes reported her. Not just for tutoring, but for often insulting and belittling students in class. One parent filed a report with their real name saying, "My son is lively and active, but this teacher called him a disgrace, a parasite to society, and made him stand in the hallway all day. My kid has already lost interest in school and is only in 3rd grade." My mom's guilt was immense. After an investigation, the Education Bureau fired her and demanded repayment of all the illegal earnings from the past 5 years. As for the students who were insulted and belittled, my mom had to apologize to them in person. They had already drained their savings for Michael's payment and now had to repay earnings. Where's the money coming from? Sarah had been raised like a little princess by them, with a monthly salary of $3,000, but it all went towards luxury goods. Sarah had spent all that money long ago. That day, my mom sent me a message. Her tone was harsh. "Give me $300,000. I was shocked by the amount. Is there really that much from 5 years of tutoring? Then why, when I just started working and needed surgery for acute appendicitis? Did my mom say there was no money? Thinking about it, I took a deep breath and replied, I don't have it. Later, I heard they sold the house. A video of my mom apologizing to that student was also circulating. For someone who had been proud her whole life, she now had a few strands of gray hair. It was my first time seeing her so humbled. As for Sarah, she lost everything due to the previous incident and had been fired from her former job. She was struggling to find work, with no one willing to hire her. A friend said they spotted her at a KTV working as a karaoke hostess, all bruised and battered. I understood. With a face quite similar to mine, I would sometimes receive unjustified insults when I was out. Once all this chaos was resolved, I left the city. I had been trying to distance myself from my family since graduating college. Fortunately, I managed to do so. My business in the neighboring city had started to take off. While on the train, I came across Michael's mom's live stream again. She had the camera on Michael, who was sitting in a wheelchair. "Please send a gift." She kept repeating those few sentences, but the viewers in her live stream were dwindling. Using the same plea for attention, people eventually became immune to sympathy. I scrolled and blocked Michael's mom's account. I'm going to chase my bright future. These annoying people and things should stay behind for good.